So there's a lot of things we're doing. I'm just going to give you a couple of them, and really very much in brief, and I won't give you as much of the process, which I really would like to talk with you about, but maybe not so much. One thing that we've done, I'm going to just get out of this talk for a second, is we have collaborated with ASHA, primarily through Cervical Cancer Free America. We were one of the consultants on this, to create a clearinghouse for cervical cancer resources. Amazing resource directory online. There are hundreds of resources. Lynn Barkley here from ASHA was the person who pushed this forward, helped identify what the resources were, what the dimensions would be, track people down, hunt them down, actually, get them in their offices, call them, everything else to create these online. It's kind of an extraordinary resource. So some big things we've been doing. One thing is we're really interested in providing HPV vaccine in school health centers. And one of the things we did is this survey that I mentioned before, where we talked to all the extramural vaccination projects that I could identify in the United States. There's only 5 of them that were providing HPV vaccine that were not already in the context of a school health center. We worked pretty hard to find them, and that's all we found. What we found is that initiation is low, and a median of 10% increase in HPV vaccine uptake across these programs. So there are certainly some real barriers that they encountered, and we've documented that in both a technical report as well as an academic paper that we'd be happy to share with you. But completion, they did a much better job with. So the median completion rate given initiation was about 78%. We also did a survey of all North Carolina school health centers. So these are just in North Carolina, all of them that are providing HPV vaccine. The first thing that was interesting to us is that we learned that not all of them have HPV vaccine. We were told 100% of them have it. That's not really the case. Actually, it's more like about 2/3. Out-of-pocket costs are a leading barrier, which we know, but it is an interesting issue that just keeps coming up again and again. Incentives and reminders were the leading interventions that these school health centers favored. We're particularly interested in moving to the intervention stage, which will be a new thing for me. I've generally done etiological studies, so this is new. The main aim here is to increase adolescent vaccine uptake. We've learned from our early work that these should be adolescent programs, and a focus on HPV vaccine will very likely drive down uptake of the program. So we've chosen 5 high school demonstration sites, and we're going to work on consent forms, promotional flyer to increase demand among parents, student incentives for returning the consent form. Yeah, well, it's the cupcake intervention is what we like to call it, but we're trying to think of it maybe as the apple intervention. We'll see. And then, of course, some extensive evaluation. We've worked on a screening resource directory that is online in a beta test form. It'll be online in a more formal way later on. This is an extensive listing of providers. To answer the question, if I were a woman, and if I wanted to get cervical cancer screening, where would I go? How would I do that? How can I get low-cost screening? So this is a list of all the providers as well as the programs. It turns out the providers are not enough. Providers are only really half the story, because you have to often get into the providers through a program, and then you have to understand the many different qualification criteria. So we've tried to sort out some of those different issues there, and these are some of the types of providers as well as some of the issues on eligibility. We're also planning right now a survey of breast and cervical cancer control program providers in North Carolina. We're really interested in identifying what is it that makes some providers really good at meeting the CDC guideline, or requirement really, of having at least 20% of the women you see in your clinic for breast cancer screening not have been screened in the last 3 years. So those are the high-risk women. Those are the women who are at highest risk for getting cervical cancer. And many of these clinics aren't meeting that. Some of them do an outstanding job of meeting that target goal. And it turns out to be really hard to find these women. So we want to figure out what that is. That's what that study is going to be. I'm also extremely proud of these partner-led projects. These are places where North Carolina plays some role, if not the leading role. So we're partnered with the North Carolina Immunization Branch to do a form of AFIX evaluation. It's a CDC evaluation, CDC-organized evaluation of the way that practices provide vaccine. It's originally intended for childhood vaccines. There's now a way of doing it for adolescent vaccines. It's been tested in a few different ways in other states. This will be probably one of the most rigorous ones, and I really hats off to the Immunization Branch for doing that. There's the North Carolina BSEP project. We're working with them on some focus groups, the women rarely screened. We're also working with the North Carolina Community Health Center Association on a provider intervention and evaluation. And then finally, we're working with the American Cancer Society and the Susan G. Komen Foundation on a income tax check form box that would give $1 to BSEP. And given the sort of cascading and disappearing funding for our state health programs, this is a really important intervention. And then hearing my colleagues talk, I feel like these are some of our best ideas that come from our colleagues. I'm reminded we're also doing some work with BRFSS as well. And then we also did some work on a cervical cancer awareness month. Thank you.